Welcome back, Aggie baseball fans. This is Jake McKeever again with Marshall Ingram. We're going to be breaking down the week in Texas A&M. Marshall, let's get right into it. First off, a lot better week this week to be an Aggie baseball fan. It seemed like the boys were kind of back.
Yeah,
Let's start with that first game against Houston Christian. And for those who kind of are unfamiliar with Houston Christian, used to be Houston Baptist, rebranded their name. Honestly, they're a little bit worse than they've been in previous years. A&M kind of beat them around a little bit.
yeah. Honestly, like with HCU this year, I'm kind of surprised since like it does seem like they're worse than past years because Bertman stepping in. I feel like they see an incline, but they've kind of hit a rut. But hey, shout out to Bertman squad. They got their first win over the weekend. But yeah, I mean, what was it, 23-0? Just seemed like
Yep.
everyone got some time. Everyone got a hit. It was just really good to see Austin Bose kind of breaking out of his slump with a big bomb, and then on the mound just doing the job. But yeah, I mean HCU, nothing like a whole lot to say. I mean there was a lot that happened, but I mean the A&M just did what they were supposed to. HCU just they didn't really they didn't really look like a Division One baseball team during that game, and I mean their outfielders were dropping routine fly balls and pitcher's just not throwing strikes. And I get it once you get down to a certain point, you kind of start to fall off. But yeah, I mean, A&M definitely took care of business that game.
Yeah, and I mean, from an A&M standpoint, you're going to win a ton of games when their
Mhm.
starter only gets one out. Bose,
Yeah.
like you said, had 6 RBIs, really banged the ball around the yard. Ton of people got to get at bats and pitching. Let me see, we used 7 pitchers, so got to see a ton of people. Nobody really threw over 40 pitches except for Wyatt Tucker, who went 1 1/3 with
Hmm.
2 hits, 3 walks. I mean, he's going to clean that up. That's his outing. But
Yeah.
from a lineup standpoint, ton of people moving in and out. Let's
Lots.
see. Jack Moss had 2 hits. Warner had a hit. Um, and scored 5 runs. Wow. They only played 7 in that game. They were up, pretty early. They had a 9-run fourth that really kind of knocked it around, and it seemed like they were just kind of getting outs. Yeah, but I mean, worth noting, like you said, Houston Christian. This isn't really the team of old, but they had some draft picks like Kyle Gruler and a
Hmm.
few other people. This one it really lacks talent. They lost to, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the worst Power Five team in Baylor. one
Hmm.
one loss or one win, and they just got it on Sunday. Let me see if we face Houston Christian again. I believe we do.
I think we
So we're
do
gonna
later
get
in
to
the season.
we're gonna get to see them again. Yep. No, we actually do not face them again.
Hmm.
I would have lost that, but we get right series after Portland and everything. It was kind of good to see the bats
Yeah.
finally kind of. I wouldn't say live up to their potential because again it is Houston Christian, but the way that
Hmm.
they've struggled, it was really good to kind of see them.
Yeah.
And then
100%.
we'll go ahead and segue that into the Friday night game against Louisville. Um, that one I kind of got a little PTSD from the Portland series. Aggies got
Yeah.
down really big early, 7-0 in the third, and then they had an 8-run
Hmm.
fifth that really kind of blew the game open. Um, I do want to credit Louisville. I think Louisville right now is probably the most complete team in the country with the pitching that we saw from them all weekend.
Yeah. Ryan
Ryan
Hawk, he
Hawk,
was
yeah,
really good.
really dealing. He went 6 innings, gave up 2 hits, 4 walks, 8 strikeouts on 99 pitches. Ben Weigman was kind of the filler guy who gave up a
Hmm.
ton of runs with the 14 score rank 14-5. He had 5 of them. Then Evan Webster kind of came in and slammed the door in 2 1/3, only allowed 1 hit. Nathan Detmer only lasted 2 innings, 4 hits, 6 runs, 4 earned, 2 base on balls, 1 strikeout on 48 pitches. At least from what I saw from him is when he kind of got, I wouldn't say in trouble because it happened a lot when he was up. He just was, missing the ball over the plate, and he's supposed to be the Friday guy, kind of in that second round in terms of
Yeah.
drafts, and he was missing over the plate. So that's not really what you want. But again, credit to the Louisville lineup, Natchik, Payton. Those are going to be guys drafted, and Jack Payton's probably going to be a guy that you see playing in the majors. So credit to them all around.
Yeah, Louisville, they were just catching barrels all day off Detmer. Yeah, like you said, he was just missing a lot. I honestly like when he didn't miss though, they were still hitting it. Like when
Yeah.
Coffer would set up outside, he would throw it. He would paint the black, but they were going the other way with it. And then when Coffer did set up inside, when he was trying to burn them in, Louisville just went with it and like they were able to get their barrel on it. And then I just saw sometimes he just left his slider over the plate, and so you just can't do that against a really good Louisville team. Louisville's really a really complete team.
Yeah, they're a really complete team, and we'll kind of touch on him later. But Evan Ashenbach came in 2 1/3,
Mhm.
2 runs, 46 innings pitch or 46 pitches. Hogan didn't record an out, gave up 4 runs on 2 hits. Matt Dillard, 1 and 2/3, 2 runs, and then Garcia and Lambert didn't allow a run across 3 innings between them. But again, credit to Ryan Hawks for as good as this Louisville lineup is. He was kind of the storyline, and I think they only allowed 1 run from a starting pitcher all weekend. So credit to Louisville. They're probably going to be the best team that we face outside of LSU. And I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that, but I think they're a little bit better than LSU in a series. But that one was, I wouldn't say it was a little bit tough to watch because they did kind of have some competitive at bats late, but 9-run game really didn't feel that competitive. They left the bases loaded, I think, in the eighth or the ninth, so there was a chance to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. But
Yeah,
Louisville, credit
and
to
I
them.
mean, still like talking on Louisville's perspective, when we did score runs, it was off Wegman. What like he was kind of like that back half of the pen kind of guy,
Yeah,
and it was when they were up 14-0, and so, but yeah, like Ryan Hawks, I mean, he was just his two seamer was just painting that black, and then he had a wipeout slider. I mean, honestly,
yeah,
from unbiased perspective, it was really fun to watch.
yeah. They weren't having a ton of competitive at bats, but again, he really wasn't
Hmm.
missing barrels. It wasn't like the
No.
Aggies were missing pitches. He just was hitting all the spots, and he seemed to
Hmm.
kind of be on. And one thing to note in that one too is Max behind the plate. He had a few pass balls and a few wild pitches, and
Yeah.
I think that's probably a little bit why Detmar I think was a little bit bad. Is I don't think he
Hmm.
trusted him behind the plate. But again, as we've seen with Jace in some of his growing pains, we can kind of expect that again from a catching standpoint with Max. You got to remember this
Yeah.
kid reclassified, so he is at times
Hmm.
going to play like a freshman, and
Yeah.
that's going to be something that they definitely need to clean up, and that's what these games are for. Because come
Hmm.
SEC play, they're going to be running all over him, and the pass balls. You need your A game, and those sliders and stuff that Dittmer throws that honestly are major minor league type sliders. I don't think I would trust a freshman back there, and we kind of saw that later in the weekend from Slosh.
Yeah, we saw that from Slosh making changes with giving Bard and Gregson a lot of time back there behind the plate.
Yeah, and he did kind of do a few things with the lineup, and we'll kind of jump into that on Saturday. His word was that Trevor Warner was sick. It wasn't a performance thing on Saturday, and
Okay.
Sunday
Yeah.
kind of credit to him for battling through that. And then the other thing too is Jordan Thompson. He did not play on Saturday, and I think that
Hmm.
that was a performance issue as well because he
Yeah.
really hasn't been seeing the ball. But let's go ahead and segue right into that. Kind of the contested thing. I know that a lot of A&M fans really weren't happy that they were playing Rice in a tournament like this. Obviously, they were supposed to be playing Michigan, and some scheduling issues with their spring break kind of forced them to change. So we'll actually talk about them a little bit later because we do play them on Wednesday, but
Hmm.
13 runs, 14 hits for A&M. That's 3 in the first, 5 in the second, 3 in the third. And that really was kind of the story of the game. That's 11-0 in the third. Um,
Yeah.
1 run on 7 hits, 2 errors for the Rice Owls. And honestly, I know that they beat Texas Tech on Friday, but this is kind of what I expected from the Rice Owls. They're going to be overmatched. Um, credits Troy Wansing, 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 83 pitches. Looked really, really sharp on the mound. And it was kind of refreshing to see after what we saw from Ditmer on Friday to see Troy Winston kind of jump in and fill that role because it was something that the
Yeah.
Aggies really needed because they hadn't played as good.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is 2 weeks in a row with Lansing having a really quality start. Like you said, 5 innings. Yeah. I think how many strikeouts do we have? 7 strikeouts, I believe.
7 strikeouts, only
Yeah. I
one
mean,
wild
just
pitch too as well.
okay. Yeah. I mean, he was. I mean, he just looked really good. That was really something that the Aggies needed to do. And against Rice, the Rice isn't they're not the team that they used to be. Back with Graham. But still like we've seen in the past, like you just can't play down to your competition. And I think that Portland series kind of woke the Aggies up from that, and that's something that they showed this week. Playing HCU and Rice, not playing down their competition, and still like they just having the same mindset as if they're playing Texas Tech.
Yeah, and again, it made me a little bit nervous because they did beat Tech, and Tech really didn't have a ton of
Hmm.
competitive at bats. But credit to Tab Tracy and Hunter Haas at the top of the order to kind of get the
Yeah.
ball rolling. A little bit of a different lineup too, as Jack Moss was the DH and Targosh played first, which was a little bit, I wouldn't say odd because we've seen that a little bit in the fall, but Targosh kind of rewarded Sloss there getting 2 hits. But it'll be really
Yeah.
interesting to see how they play with Bose, Targosh, and now Moss in the mix and Minnick when they all get back, who kind of gets at bats because I think Caden Kent at this point has earned a spot in the lineup.
I
And I
think
know
he's
that.
kind of solidified himself as that, that other outfielder with replacing Minnick. I think Casey Wells has done a really good job when he's gotten in there, but I think Kent, he's just been a little more consistent. But it was also cool to see because I think Kent is a natural infielder, and they've kind of shifted him to the outfield after Minnick went down. But
Mhm.
on Saturday, he went 2 for 4 while he's playing third base, filling in for Warner, and so that just kind of it's encouraging to see later in the season if someone does go down in the infield, can come and fill that role.
Yeah, and you can always have extra infielders too. That's
Hmm.
really not a it's a hot
Yeah.
commodity. It seems it's almost like catchers where it and we saw in the textures that will kind of jump in where you need people that are really great at the field. But again, um, Trevor Warner was just an illness thing, not a performance
Hmm.
thing, so he was out. But we did see Tab Tracy in the leadoff spot instead of
Yeah.
Jordan Thompson, and he went 1 for 4 with a hit, scored 3 runs, looked really good in the field too as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Tab out there. He yeah, 1 for 4, got walked as well. Just
Mm.
just finding ways to get on base. That's just really good to see. Because like you said, Jordan Thompson not having the best at bats lately, but I think Jordan Thompson. I mean, he's not gonna lose that spot out there.
No, and Sauce, I wouldn't say he likes to play mind games because he's very open and honest with a lot of
Mhm.
things. I would be very shocked. I mean, Jordan Thompson started slow last year too in the spring and ended up being one of the best hitters in Omaha. But
Yeah.
I did see on Twitter that a lot of people have kind of pointed to the Minnick injury as kind of being the reason for his downfall. And I really don't think that. And it almost raises a point of when Minnick gets back, where does he kind of slot in, especially with Lavalette too playing outfield.
Mhm.
I'm not really familiar with his under or his high school years. So I'm not sure if he's a natural outfielder or first baseman. I
Yeah.
assume with his height that he's a first baseman, but that'll be really interesting to see how they kind of play it with
Yeah, it
Mosh,
will, and
Dargosh, Bose, Minnick, and now him. It seems like other than Haas and I would say to some extent Warner, I know he hasn't really been hitting the bat. Everything else kind of seems to be up in the air for A&M.
mhm. Yeah, it does. It does, 100%, especially the catching position. That's
Yeah.
just one position, like, here in the next few weeks, whoever's just gonna, provide the best at bats, because I feel like they're all good defensively. Um, Bard and, Gregson, they're both JUCO guys. Bard, he's a national champion at the JUCO level, and so he's got two extra years of experience over Coffer, and so, as well as Gregson. But but yeah, I just think whoever gets hot first is going to really just take over that position. I think.
Yeah, and Hank Bard too. It kind of has some major league lineage with Josh Bard. That's his
Hmm.
uncle, so that's another thing too. Is probably that aspect of it. But again, it was a really refreshing thing to see, and obviously the game was a lot less pressure, and Louisville wasn't put or Rice wasn't putting anywhere near the pressure. But from a catching standpoint, the wild pitches really got limited. There was only one the whole game, and again, it was from Wansing, who
Hmm.
was very effective. The ball really didn't kick by, and it was a very quick game. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how they look again on Wednesday against Rice. But again, I would say that this is a B because it's Rice and it's somebody that you should be beat, and that's really the only thing that kind of keeps them from getting an A in my eyes. But
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
the
I
best
agree.
game A&M has played from a hitting, pitching standpoint, kind of getting it all
Hmm.
together. And again, it's Rice, so pump the brakes and everything. But if we see this A&M team, this is the one that we saw last year, where the sky's the limit, competitive at bats, making the battle for every pitch. This is the slosh ball.
Yeah, and that's what everyone, I think, coming into the season, against Seattle, against Portland, that's what we expected to see in those first two series, was like
Yeah,
how we played against Rice. I mean, you jump right into the first inning, put up three in the bottom of the first, and then by the end of the second inning, it's 8-0. And so, like, when you just that's what we've been waiting to see out of the Ags. And so I think if they can keep that up, we got UIW coming up, and then Northern Kentucky, just small schools like that. If we can just play how they did, against Rice, that'll be awesome.
yeah, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the big one that was on everybody's mind last night. A&M and M and Texas Tech played 16 innings. A&M won 4-2. Obviously, 7 hits for A&M, 10 for Tech. Longest game in college classic history. Longest
Wow.
game since 2018. Ironically, at the College Classic. The record that they broke was Sloss against A&M and TCU. So I guess Sloss just loves those long games. And very, very interesting game because, again, Aggie scored one in the fifth, one in the ninth, where Tech had two in the sixth, and that was their only runs. A&M
Mhm.
didn't have a hit from the fifth until I believe either the 15th or the 14th inning, and they still were able to get a run, which is something that's almost crazy. And
Yeah,
another
that
stats,
is
A&M's
insane.
two out hitting was 0.0. Their hitting with runners on was 125, and if you just look at hitting stats, it is almost mind-boggling that A&M won this game.
No, it's insane. Like Tech gave up six free bases, and you only score 4 runs off of that, and so that's actually crazy that we actually stayed in this game with that stat up there.
Yeah, and of the 7 hits, 4 of them were Jack Moss and Jace, or not Jack Moss, excuse me, Austin Bose and Jace, going 4 of 7. Jack Moss had the big, I wouldn't say hit because it ended up being ruled in error, but
Yeah.
again, I think the difference in the game was Haas, like I said earlier in the show, really solidified himself as the shortstop, and he played Gold Glove level
Mhm.
shortstop for A&M.
Yeah.
Did make an error and stole a bunch of hits from Tech. And as we saw with Trevor Warner on some of the balls at third, some of the balls come off weird spin, and he made all the plays look easy. And Tech had
Yeah.
2 errors from their shortstop, and that ended up being the game.
Yeah, it ended up costing them.
From a pitching standpoint, just going to read off the stats. Chris Cortez, 5 1/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. Uh, Sadejo, 1 inning, 1 run given up. He kind of came in and wiggled his way out of trouble. Will Johnston, 2 2/3 inning, no hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Brad Rudis, 1 1/3, 3 hits, no runs. The big one, Evan Aschenbeck, 4 2/3, 8 strikeouts, struck out or faced 14 batters, retired all 14 of them. And Justin Lampkin came in and shut the door with an inning. But again, Evan Aschenbeck pitched 40 pitches on Friday and was then called
Yeah.
upon to. And
Yeah, Aschenbeck's
and
my
A&M,
player of
what
the game.
I was going to say, I would say he's the player of the week in my eyes. And,
Mhm.
you know, it is worth noting that A&M was the visiting team here. So
Yeah.
they went out and pretty much from a pitching standpoint, they had 7 or 8 chances, I think, for Tech to where it was do or die, to where if
Mhm.
they even scored a run, it was period. And then the other part of that was there was a few times where it felt like Tech was, 1 hit away from blowing it back open. And then, A&M kind of wiggled out of it. And Tech really didn't hit the ball very well either. But from a pitching standpoint, I mean, this could be a very, very big turning point for the Aggies. I mean, that was a good
Yeah,
easy win.
the pitching won that game for the Aggies, especially. Even like, and they did get themselves in trouble a lot. Sadeo and Will Johnston both got themselves in trouble, but they were able to kind of escape scot free. I know Sadeo gave up a run, but Johnston, he was able to get out of it and kind of save the Aggies, helped them get in extra innings. But then Aschenbach, it was really fun to watch. Actually, I mean, I feel like they played. And once it got to extras, I think there was three. They played 3 innings, and it seemed like 15 minutes or so.
Yeah,
Kyle Robinson, and Evan Aschenbach just going back and forth.
just
That
dealing.
was awesome. Yeah.
And the other thing too, I like that's kind of going to be glossed over just because this was a 15 inning marathon. Was A&M was really, really aggressive on the base pass early. There was a ton of
Hmm.
hit and runs, ton of steals. I think the Tech catcher and from what I heard from Kendall Rogers and a few other people, just because I don't know about the Tech catcher, is that he's not like a bad catcher. Like it wasn't like A&M was trying to take advantage of it, and he shut the door and threw 2 people out. But again, I mean, it
Yeah.
really, really aggressive from Sloss early, and they did kind of, I wouldn't say ran themselves out of a few innings, just because I mean Tech had to make the plays, but that's something that I really want to see from the Aggies going forward, especially if they're going to be the small ball type team that's really not hitting the
Hmm.
ball very well, is stealing those extra
Yeah, you're
extra
gonna have to steal
bases.
bags. Yeah, you're gonna have to steal those
Yeah,
bags
Jack
and steal
Moss
those
after the
runs.
walk with the hit and run to get him to third,
Hmm.
and again they didn't turn into runs, but again you're putting yourself
Yeah.
into a position where one hit kind of changes the game.
Yeah, and then from a base running standpoint as well. I mean, it was in the top of the ninth. I forget who it was, but there's drop third strike, and Cason Wells, he's on second base. He takes third on that, and so and
Yeah.
that helped the Ags push it to extras as well.
Yep. So Wells walked. Here's just the ninth inning for the Aggies. Wells walked. Haas flied to center. and he advanced to second on a wild pitch. Moss struck out swinging, and like you said, Wells advanced to third. Bose walked and
Yeah.
then was pinch hit for or pinch ran for, and Chestnut I believe stole, and then Werner or Targash was intentionally walked, um, and then Werner obviously with the ball five walk, and
Yeah.
and that was no hits, one run for the Aggies that took them into the 10th, and that
Yeah.
was really impressive to see because they were really, I would say, tense at bats. They didn't chase pitches. There were a few pitches that weren't very close, but
Mhm.
again, they didn't chase pitches to have that happen.
No, they didn't at all. No, I mean, and credit to Texas Tech. Their pitchers, they were dealing all day, just like the Ags. And I mean, yeah, just really good, like just finding a way to get on base.
Mhm. Yeah, and Lavalette had a few at bats as well late. I mean, he stayed on a curveball in the second inning, stayed on a
Yeah.
curveball and hooked it down the line, and that was kind of good to see from him because I mean it's growing pains with a freshman, and it feels really dirty to talk about a freshman, but he hasn't really been seeing the ball very well at all.
Yeah. No, not at all. But I mean, that's going to come with time. I mean, it's a
Yep.
huge jump from high school pitching to you're jumping to Big 12 and SEC pitching. With Texas Tech. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll be fine I think once conference rolls around, get a few SEC games under his belt. I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, and I think once Sloss gets him in the cage and kind of works on his weaknesses a little bit
Hmm.
as well, that so those won't be exposed as much. Because I think that's kind of the thing for him is it
Yeah.
truly is the first time in his career that people are scouting him, and I
Hmm.
think that's kind of I wouldn't say the issue, but I think that he's not like he hasn't been scouted at this rate before, and they're kind
Yeah.
of I wouldn't say exposing, but he's got to be better at his weaknesses, or it's going to get
Well, and he had a
ripped
huge
apart.
fall at the plate, like
Yeah.
lots of home runs. Then early on in the season, he goes back to back with home runs in the first series. And so there's a big possibility, he gets a little home run happy, and you just got to, that freshman mindset just that comes with maturity.
Mhm. And then just some notes on the 16th inning. Bard with a single to left, advanced to second on a wild pitch. Haas with an error that sent Bard to third. Moss reached on another error that got him to first and third, and then a walk and a fielder's choice, the sac fly.
Yeah.
That was 2 runs. And again,
Hmm.
Lampkin came in, strikeout, fly out, strikeout. Very,
Yeah.
very for as stressful as the game was, it almost felt anticlimactic that the 16th ended the way that it did. I almost
It,
kind of
it
expected a
really
few
did. Yeah.
walks. Yeah, that was a ton of walks too.
Lots, lots. I
Let me
mean, yeah, from both sides, but I mean, like I said earlier, Texas Tech gave up 16 free bases, and I don't know about
yeah.
you, but I just feel like the Aggies, they just ground into so many double plays
Oh,
and
they
just
do.
they yeah, and just get themselves out of innings where I mean, I know we had sometime in the game there was no outs, two runners on first and second, and then a ground ball, gets Texas Tech out of it.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that was the Stanley inning where he got
yeah.
rung up on the interference, and Targash
Mhm.
kind of had the double play. But A&M had six. They reached base 16 times for free and had
Mhm.
16 strikeouts. Um, Tech, on the other hand, had 7 free bases and struck out 23 times. A&M though left on 16. Tech left 17 people on bases again.
Yeah.
And a lot of these were early too, like the extra inning games. They weren't leaving people on, so
Mhm.
a lot of these were from the 1 through 9, where again it almost felt like I wouldn't say a heavyweight battle because I think both these teams are not top 10. I would say they're top 20, but they were just kind of feeling each other out. And once A&M kind of made that first move, it seemed like the A&E kind of stepped up for Tech and they were taking extra bases again.
Yeah.
But again, Tech on the weekend went 1-2 with a loss to
Yeah.
Rice and a rebound win against Michigan. So didn't play kind of the premier teams. Like they didn't play Louisville, they didn't play obviously TCU because they're in the same conference, but 1-2 against Rice and Michigan and A&M is not an impressive reskin for the Red Raiders at all.
No, it's not. I think they kinda got hit with, they've been playing a, fairly weak schedule, coming into this conference, and so have
They've
the
been playing
Aggies.
a
But
ton of games too. I think
yeah,
they're
they cut.
they
Yeah, they
I'll
come
have
in
to check and
undefeated.
see,
And,
but I believe that they've played the most games of anybody in the country.
oh wow,
Yeah, they
yeah,
they
I didn't know
played
that.
yeah, they played 2 midweeks and then they had a 4 or 5 game series with Gonzaga. So I'll have
Mm,
to verify and make sure that someone else didn't sneak up on them today, but I believe that they've played more games than anybody in the country.
yeah, well, yeah, but it was. I mean, that was just a really fun game, just from a fan perspective. I mean, when Ashenbach and Robinson, they're just going back and forth. That was some old school baseball. That was really fun to see.
Very, very old school baseball,
Yeah.
and it was one of the better games I've ever been a part of too, just from a tense standpoint.
Mhm.
It seemed like every single pitch, at least in the first 9, especially the way A&M and even to some extent the way Tech's hitting, it almost felt like 5 runs in the first 9 innings is almost an insurmountable
Yeah.
lead, and every pitch kind of meant so much that it was really a great game to watch.
Yeah, it was really encouraging to see just, so many people coming up clutch in those clutch situations.
Yeah.
Whether it's pitching, fielding, hitting, whatever it was, someone stepped up. Multiple guys stepped up throughout the game, and I mean that's kind of promising to see. Just looking forward into the season, once we get later in a conference tournament, and then onto the postseason.
All right, we'll go ahead and preview some of the games coming up.
Mhm.
First off, tomorrow we got Incarnate Ward. They are 6-6 on the season and 1-1 at away games. They did beat Houston, and they are coming off a sweep of Louisiana Monroe, who actually ironically beat Mississippi State in a midweek. So they're
Yeah,
not exactly a slouch. But again, losses to Utah, losses to Texas State, UTSA.
and
Um,
Corpus. Yeah.
I don't even know who the school is. A loss to Tarleton and a loss to SIUE. I don't even know who that is. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know.
SIU.
The Cougars.
Yeah, that would be Southern Illinois Edwardsville. That's
Okay.
who they got swept on the first weekend. But again, this is one of those games. It's going to be a midweek game, so
Mhm.
I mean it'll be really interesting to see how Schloss kind of plays the midweek aspect of it because I think
'Cause then you turn around and you got Rice.
yeah, and I I think Wyatt Tucker will probably pitch and Ty Sexton, but A&M's going to need to run roll one of these next 2 teams for their
Yeah.
pitching to kind of be to back to reset to the week, and it'll be that is kind of a good thing is Ashenbeck kind of extended some of the bullpen, but again he's not going to be able to pitch and he's the
Yeah.
bullpen guy, but I I think it'll be a committee game outside of
Yeah,
Wyatt
pitching's
Tucker.
gonna be running thin. I think this whole week, because 'cause
Yeah,
you're coming off of, a long weekend, especially with the 16-inning game. Like you said, thank God Ashenbeck stepped up, and, took out, 4 innings. But then you got 2 midweeks, and then you got a 3-game series against Northern Kentucky. And so
yeah,
I think Wyatt Tucker, I really wanna see him have a really quality start. I assume he'll pitch against UIW, but it'd be really
he's
good
going
to
to pitch
see him.
one. He's going to pitch either
Yeah.
Rice or UIW. I think
If he
that's
if he can step up and, if he can eat up, 5 or 6 innings, that'll be awesome just to save that bullpen for A&M.
yeah. We'll probably see Brad Rudis too as well. His pitch count's pretty low, but I think the Rice game on Wednesday will be a little bit closer. It is going to be at Reckling, so um, and it's not going to be at Minute Maid Park. So that's going to be a very, very, I'd say, I wouldn't say hard game, but it's going to be a very, very difficult game to get up for. Because
Yeah.
again, this isn't the Rice of old. It's not Minute Maid Park. You're not having 10,000 Aggie fans chanting behind you.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
one's really going to be on A&M as a team to kind of find that leader and play a good
Yeah.
game. And that one almost kind of feels like a trap game for
It
me
really
as a
does,
fan.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
like
coming
Rice
out,
is good enough to beat Tech. They just blew them
mhm,
out. Not
and they're gonna come
really
out with a
the
little fire after getting run ruled against the Aggies. And so, just it seems like a possibility that they come out with low energy. I really hope they don't, especially after, last week against Lamar,
Mhm.
because you can see what happened. happens whenever you do come out with low energy.
Rice will be coming off a game against Utah or University of Texas Rio Grande Valley on Tuesday, so they're pitching again. Might be a little suspect, but um, Texas Tech, I mean not Texas Tech, Rice is undefeated so far in midweek games at 2-0, so they are a little bit better than I am in that aspect. But they
Hmm.
beat Sam twice, and Sam's kind of, I would say, at the level of Rice where they're hit or miss. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be another one where they need a little bit of a bullpen type game to extend it because I don't imagine the Rice midweek guy will be any better than the Rice Saturday guy. So it'll be on them to kind of have that get right quick series. Hopefully Warner's over
Yeah.
his illness, and if not, we'll have to have guys step up.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the Northern Kentucky Norse, they sit at 7-4. I assume that they'll be 8-4 because they play Bellarmine on Tuesday. They are a newer Division One program. I know they've had a few series with State, and I don't think I think they've only made the tournament once, but they are again a newer team and a game that A&M should take
Yeah, they
two of
really
three from.
yeah,
Yeah, or even
should
sweep.
I think they should sweep them. They haven't really played anyone, quality opponent yet, and like you
No.
said, newer Division One team. If the Aggies play like they did this week against, those smaller schools, not playing down to their competition, I think they should take three from Northern Kentucky.
Yep. Northern Kentucky, from a scheduling standpoint, took 2 of 3 from Eastern Michigan, won a midweek against Eastern Kentucky, swept Western Michigan, 2 of them in extra innings, and wow, they put up 27 runs on Sunday. Um, midweek against Xavier, that was at home, and I think Xavier's in Cincinnati, so it's like a fight. It'd be like if Rice played Houston, and then
Hmm.
over the weekend, Murray State took 2 of 3 from them. So again, they sit at 7-4. Um, NCAA tournament appearances, they have not made the tournament since. They have never made the tournament as a Division One team. They made the jump
Yeah,
from Division Two. Again, I don't think that this will be a difficult series, but again, I think that this is probably at the level of Portland, and Portland took 2 of 3 from A&M and probably
yeah,
should have swept them.
yeah, 100%. But I think the Ags they're going to have a lot of momentum coming off of Texas Tech, especially with
Mhm.
that 16 inning game. I think I'm kind of jumping to my prediction here for the week. I
Oh
think
well,
with
hold on. Before we get to that,
okay.
um, they have a guy Northern Kentucky does Colton, and I'm probably butchering his name, Colton Kashera, who's hitting 500, um, 28 of 14 with 5 doubles. John Odom hitting 455 um, with 3 doubles, 1 home run. Trevin Moss, 422. Jaden Wykeham, 364. So, I mean, they can, and I don't know how much of these are inflated by that 27 run
Hmm.
game, but
Yeah,
it seems to be that the strength of their team is going to be their hitting. Um, Brock Clay, 5 appearances out of the bullpen for him, 1.32 ERA. Outside of that, no
yeah.
one even
Looking at
has
their
above.
scores, I mean, they put up a lot of runs,
They bang the ball around
100%.
the yard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, consistently they're putting up 8 or 9 runs or 6 runs a game
Mhm.
against all these schools that they're playing.
So it'll be a shootout, and I think it'll be one that A&M fans will like to see. Obviously, runs being scored and stuff like that. But from a pitching standpoint, it'll be interesting to see how Detmer does, because if he does what he does against Louisville, I wouldn't say he gets banged around at the same aspect as he did against Louisville. But
Um,
again, if you leave the ball over the middle of the plate, you're gonna get banged around.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
before we get into predictions, any closing remarks before we close the week on this one officially from last week?
it was really good to see Boast get back in, his form that we're all used to see. I think he was over the weekend. I think he was 6 for 10 on the weekend, and then 9 for 14 over the whole week, including
Yep.
HCU with I believe 2 home runs. And so,
And two
just
home runs and 3 doubles.
yeah, really, really good to see Boast, get back. And I think that if he can keep that going, that'll bring the Ags a long way.
Yeah, and Jack Moss too. And I know that he hasn't exactly been cold, but he went 0 for on Sunday, 0 for
Yeah.
7. So that was
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
kind of alarming to see an 0 for 7, 1 for 7, whatever it is.
yeah, but again, sometimes it's just not your day. And his batting average
No, yeah,
dipped from
it's
300.
not
I
your
think it
day.
went
Yeah,
from like
it's not your day, and you get 7 at bats. Your average is kind of screwed.
same with Warner too to some extent. Especially battling that
Yeah,
illness. I'm sure he was like, "Geez, I want to get this game over with."
yeah, sick and getting 7 at bats.
All right, so let's get into predictions. What do you think A&M's record's going to be?
So I think they take 3 against Northern Kentucky,
Mm,
and then I think they take it against UIW at home on Tuesday, and then I could see them dropping 1 against Rice, but I think that Schloss is really gonna, hammer it in his guys' minds, just to come out with energy because they've already dropped a midweek against a mid-major team,
yeah.
or I guess right, yeah, and so, um, yeah, I think they go 5-0.
All right, I'm going to be a little bit of a pessimist. I think they go 3-2. I think that
Three two.
The Rice game on Wednesday, I think is going to be a loss for A&M just because I think it's just too perfect for them to win that one. And then in a weekend series, I could see them losing either the Lansing start or the Ditmer start. I think you, as a fan, I would be very happy if both of them did good, but realistically, I'd be very happy if one of them had elite performance. I think Lansing, I wouldn't say he's due for a bad performance, but he's been so good the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I would rather be against this than an SEC team. And then obviously, winning on Sunday, I don't think A&M always wins on Sunday. So I'm going to go 3-2 with 2 losses, one on the weekend and one during the midweek.
gotcha. Nice. I will
Just a little
say I
pessimist.
won I won the predictions last week, so hopefully we can stay on a roll.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think we both did.
You said
We did get the.
3-1, yeah, you did too.
I think I called the
I said
Louisville
we
game
took it
too.
against you did, didn't you? Yeah,
Yeah,
I got that swapped up. I thought I called the Tech game.
I called the Louisville loss.
Yeah,
I
you
did have the
did.
Tech win too. The Tech one I felt a lot better about Saturday morning than I did about it than
Yeah.
Sunday morning. They were I watched that game and I still, and this is no knock on Rice, but when you watch Rice warm up, they don't throw the ball as hard as A&M and Texas Tech do. The
Mm,
balls in BP go about 15 feet shorter. Their
yeah.
pitchers throw about 2 to 3 miles per hour less and don't really have as much movement. So I honestly don't know what happened. Tech just kind of they hit a lot of fly balls that I guess Rice didn't make errors on, but gosh, that was just a terrible effort from Tech.
Yeah, really was, Jay. You can't, I mean, if you're, Texas Tech, you just can't drop games against guys like Rice.
No, and I mean they'll figure it out. They have their Super Bowl coming up against Texas to play, so they'll be
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
who
they'll
do
be
you
all right.
before we go? Who do you predict will be your MVP for the A&M this weekend? Who do you think has the best week?
MVP of the week.
Yep,
I think Bose stays hot, honestly. I think he's
Boast.
gonna, yeah, I'd say Boast. I mean, coming off a really hot week, I don't think they're not playing, the best in competition. I think he's really gonna, stud out this week.
I'm gonna
What
go
about you?
Trevor Warner. He
Okay, I'd like to see that. Yeah,
hasn't really been hitting the ball as I'm sure as well as he's liked. In the field, he shut off his arm strength a little bit, but it's been I wouldn't say a chore to watch him field the baseball, but it's definitely not been a pretty sight to see. Yep. Hitting 171 this year as a redshirt, or I guess a COVID junior, with 6 hits. Um, he does have 2 home runs, but again, and then in the field, uh, he has 2 errors already. So, and I I think he should have had 3 with that game.
yeah, yeah. I agree. But no, no, I can't hear you. Hang on.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
So I guess then we'll just wrap the show up on that. My headset died, so we'll see everybody next week for Texas A&M baseball.
See you guys.